Hey everyone, it's time for some more Jump King! I may have lost all my muscle memory, but let's hope for the best. I believe last time I played Jump King I said I'm not gonna try the New Game Plus thing, but literally next try after ending that stream I made it up to the next area, so that made me decide to eventually play some more of it, and I guess now's the time. Now that I completely forgot all the muscle memory. Okay. I see the chat is excited. Okay, so how much do I need? That's, wow, surprisingly enough. Bit too much, maybe. Ooh, can I fall off to the right? Well, let's see. No, okay, that's actually incredibly generous of the game. Actually, can I just bounce to the... Yes, I can. Also, OBS, do you really need to drop frames again? OBS is so weird. Sometimes it runs flawlessly and then it decides, yeah, no, I've had enough. Now I'm just gonna lose all the frames. And I don't know why. Nope. And yes, everything is icy here. This is gonna take a while to get back up there. Okay. Yep, a long while. If I fall all the way down to the bottom, please don't actually make me do it. Otherwise I will. Okay, you know what? To get our muscle memory back, let's start all the way from the beginning again. Delete save. This is probably for the better. Get some more practicing before we get to the more difficult parts. Get a grip back on the momentum and stuff. Ooh, also something that I've found out recently is... Well, we'll get there in a second. But I saw some Jump King videos and... not enough. Oh god. Yep, as you can see, I'm definitely out of practice, but yeah, I was watching the videos and saw a secret that's fairly early on too, which is a reason why I want to do this, and definitely not because I'm out of practice. I'm doing fine, and how do you keep missing my streams? I don't know, I don't have a schedule, that's why, probably. And YouTube doesn't always notify people I've heard. And that was too much. Personally, I don't even have notifications on for YouTube, so I wouldn't know. But, yeah. I usually just jump into streams myself when I just happen to see something's on. Otherwise, I just watch recordings, for the most part. Does note that a lot of streamers sit in the US and stream during times which are impossible for European people. There we go. And apparently... Oh, there's a secret here. Which I missed. I don't know how you're supposed to find out about the secret outside of randomly stumbling upon it, which, to be fair, is how most secrets work. But... still, who would willingly jump into a ceiling? Okay, how much force do we need? 0 force is not enough. That much I can definitely tell. Yeah, don't worry. It's only going to take me half the stream to get my muscle memory back. No worries. Oh dear. And of course, just when I started streaming, my cat decided that she wants to have some attention. Right, Blume? Yes. She definitely did not like that I put my microphone on her sleeping spot on my table. How rude of me. Seriously, that cat thinks she owns this place, and I can't even really deny it. She kind of does. She's definitely paying the rent. There we go. And now I've got a hat, which would be a lot more impressive if I didn't already have a better hat. But it's the thought that counts. Now I have 2 hats. Man, I wish you could stack hats. That would be so good. We're assuming there's even more accessories that you could just stack them all, even if they're occupying the same slot. Just imagine wearing 2 different sets of shoes, and the crown being stacked on top of the hat. What else could we have? Multiple sets of capes, maybe? I don't know. I like this kind of silly stuff of putting multiple things on top of each other. Okay, that was just a jump to the left. And then step it to the right. I feel like I'm doing this joke every single time I'm playing Jump King. Oh no. I deserve that. Ah! Too much. Oop, that was a close one. I honestly find it kind of weird. Like, not necessarily weird, but like I understand that people can get frustrated with this game, but at the same time I really don't understand how people can get frustrated to extreme degrees over this game. Like, the mechanics are incredibly simple, and sure, it's punishing and all, but you're in full control over every single of your moves, so I feel like anytime I fall down, yeah, sure, if I fall down like 5 or 15 different screens, sure, yeah, that's a little annoying, but in the end, it was my own mistake of falling down, so. Okay, I believe there was a full jump from the very edge. Well, the opposite, but yes. Ah, Crow, you're back, I see. That works. Man, but I was just starting to play this game. It took me forever just to get up here, didn't it? Oh. Yeah, this should still work, right? Yes. A bit too much. It's kind of fascinating. Like, my muscle memory is almost entirely gone, but just from remembering, like, oh, this jump was a full jump, is, okay, but test what happens if we do that. Yeah, just knowing which jumps are full jumps and which ones aren't does speed up climbing back up so much. Ah, no, I made it! Unfortunate. One thing that I definitely forgot about though is release the movement button after jumping. Unless you're on ice, the movement button does nothing outside of making you walk off the edge later on. Like honestly, even if you land... okay. Even if you land at like the furthest most pixel of a platform, holding the movement button does nothing. If you land on there, you land on the platform, and if you don't land on there, you don't, so... Again, the one difference is ice, though. Because of the slipperiness. Eh? Okay, that one, that might also be one of the few, of the few instances where holding the movement button does do something. Because it technically bounced off the wall and then, due to moving, moved up there. But again, the instances are very few. Okay, was that enough? Yes, okay. And we're back. Excellent. Well, I say that, but I still have to do this job. God dang it. There we go. And we're back in probably my least favorite area in the game. I don't like these jumps, I don't know. They're easy now, I guess, but never mind. This game listens in, I swear. Well, not just this game, all of them do, really. Especially never... Huh. Especially never tell a game not to apply instant death on you. The game will listen. And do the opposite, of course, because the games are dicks. Eh? How did that not work? Odd. Speaking of instant death, well, more or less, I don't really recall an instance where the game threw an instant death at me, but I've been playing a lot of the Atelier series of games recently. Okay, that's how I got up here. Yeah, they're really fun, and I may be playing them a bit too much. Like, they're pretty much the only game I'm playing off stream at this point. Look, they're fun. They're not all that demanding. And they're surprisingly worried, I guess. And they do mix things up from game to game, which I guess I appreciate it still, even though sometimes they go from a mechanic that I really like and take it away. I'm still mad at you for that, Escalogy. Yeah. The current game that I'm playing is Atelier Firis, the second one in the Mysterious sub-series. And, well, okay, can I make this jump here? I can, nice. And I can jump too high here, okay. And, yeah, in the recent games in the Atelier series, so in the, well, okay, not the early ones, from what I've read, they were taking it away at some earlier points too, but so the first Atelier game that I've played, Atelier Rorona, as well as the next couple games in the series, had a time limit system where essentially you were given, say, 3 or 5 years depending on the game that you're playing, and you had to do some... That was dumb. You had to do some assignments during during that time span, where like during say 3 months in game time you have to do this assignment, and then the next 3 months you have to do that. You're getting graded on how well you did. At least that's how it was in the Rorona. It's different in each game really. But yeah, the first couple games had this time limit system, and I really started appreciating it after a bit, because it kind of gave you an indication of how well you're doing, in a way. Say, again, in Atelier Rorona, when you have 3 to 4 months per assignment, if you're done after, with like half a month still remaining, you know, oh hey, nice, I did well. I did everything that I could already, so now let's do some optional stuff, like create some more items, because the Atelier series, maybe I should explain that too, you're playing an alchemist, and as such, you have the ability to create items by collecting all sorts of items from the overworld and putting them into your cauldron, and then just stirring up another new item, like bombs. Or bombs. Or more bombs. Seriously though, these alchemists have a crazy addiction to bombs, like honest, trust me. There's so many of them. And yeah, like a big system in these games is usually getting new recipes for new items and crafting these new items that you then either use in combat or outside of combat. Okay, most of them are for combat purposes or to be fused into new items along the route. But you can also, like, you can create one-time use items, like, say, all the bombs you can make, or healing items. But you also usually can make some accessories and stuff, which you can then just equip on your character and you're good. Until you craft a better accessory and then just throw away that old one. But, right, the time system. So yeah, like, if I had still, say, half an in-game month worth of time, then I would just create some accessories if they weren't part of the assignment stuff, or I would just craft the other items which I still have access to, but have made it because they weren't of the assignment. But usually you need them for the next assignment anyway, so I would just, you know, work a little bit ahead. Or I think I'd be working ahead, because in reality they're not needed after all. But that's kind of the fun part, just knowing, yeah, you did well by being faster, and now you can fall down again. Yeah. But in the latest Atelier games that I've played, they completely removed the time restriction system. I guess they did bring it back in Furious, but from what I've read, only for a portion of it. Yeah, and in the first game where they removed it, it really felt like, okay, and okay, it wasn't really because of the missing time system, but oh, that was way too high. But in what was it called again? Atelier Shally, right? The first Atelier game that I've played without a time system. Due to the lack of time system, the developers probably thought, okay, yeah, because you're not timed, we can just have you do a couple of missions, and if you're done with the missions, like, you can do some more arbitrary missions, and these arbitrary missions were so annoying. Like in so usually in these games you have some let's call them side quests, in the sense of you can go and slay some monsters, or you can create some items that you can then hand into the tavern for some rewards, like that kind of stuff. And in Shally, that's what I would be doing anyway. Like, oh yeah, I need some money, so let's just create some items and hand them over, I guess. Crud. And right, once I got done with the story stuff in Shally, for any given chapter, the game would then tell me, oh yeah, now hand over some items to the tavern. Or do some other quests for the tavern. I literally just fulfilled like 8 different quests for the tavern. Are you telling me those don't count? No, those don't count. For fuck's sake! And they had more of these arbitrary quests where it's, god damn it, I did it again! Which is like, oh yeah, go and fight 5 monsters. I already fought like 5 monsters already. Why do I need to do that again? It was really weird. The game itself was technically decent. Shally is probably my least favorite game out of the Atelier series, though, so, But I feel like that's more on me, that I just didn't really appreciate the systems they put in there. Because most of the mechanics from the previous 2 games of that sub-series were ones that I really liked. And in the end, none of those remained, and the mechanics that were put in there in their favor were all lesser, in my opinion. But that's on me. And everybody likes the same kind of stuff. Like, I like Jump King, which a lot of people don't. Yeah, but just the fact that in Shally, they both got rid of the time system, which at that point I'd really liked. And on top of that, had these weird arbitrary things at the end of each chapter, which made it feel like, oh yeah, we don't have a time system anymore, so we can't just waste your time now. Yeah. That's how it felt to me. And then the next game of the series, Atelier Sophie, they also didn't have a time limit system, which they did better in that game, I feel. I guess the thing too why I don't mind or even like the time restriction in the Atelier games is because they give you so much time. Like, honestly, you're generally never in any like rush to get anything done. case in point in the game before Shelly in Atelier Eska and Logi. By the end of the game, like that game also had you do assignments which lasted for 90 days each, and in the last couple of assignments I had like 20 days left over. And that was with doing every extra stuff like crafting weapons, crafting every item I had access to that I hadn't crafted yet, etc, etc. Like I literally had nothing to do. The game did probably expect you to just... That's not working. The game probably did just expect you to craft more, like, better weapons. Because while I did have every weapon type already crafted, and the best weapon for each weapon type, I guess, I still... So, weapons can have traits which you can put on there, depending on which items you use to craft those weapons. And those traits can be... like, you can put traits on items during the crafting process, like, period. So, if I use an item that's crafted by itself already, that means that I could... Like, for example, I use 2 raw materials, like 2 herbs, to make a neutralizer. And then I use this neutralizer for creating a weapon. Then the traits that are on the neutralizer come from these 2 herbs that I put on there. And, well, since the neutralizer is used for crafting a weapon, that means that the weapon now has the traits of the neutralizer. With these traits being stuff like defense up, attack up, or some such. So, what I could do is just make an incredibly powerful neutralizer with all sorts of insanely good traits on there, to then make an insanely powerful weapon. But that's too much busy work for me, so I never did any of that. Which is why I ended up with like an easy 20 days left over at the end of an assignment. But I still made it through the game alright. Like, the only thing you can't do if you don't make crazy powerful weapons is fight the super bosses, but screw the super bosses. The Atelier games for me really are a lot about the crafting and less about the fighting. Like, the fighting system works, depending on the game, and some better than others. Looking at you there, Atelier Shally. Yeah. But still, like, the things that I have the most fun with in the Atelier games is usually the crafting and exploring all the dungeons to find new items to then use for crafting purposes. Yeah. But to get back to the point of the time restriction system, like, not only does it never really put any actual pressure on you, I feel like, at least with the Atelier games that I've played so far, maybe the lack of a timing system gets better in future Atelier games, but especially in Shally, but also to a lesser degree in Sophie, which also doesn't have a time restriction, I kind of felt a little unguided in a way, because, like, yeah, in the future Atelier games I would prioritize crafting stuff that was for the assignments. If there were assignments. If there weren't any assignments, then I would just craft whatever I had access to at the point in time, until the new story beat set in. And whenever I had time, I would then craft the remaining stuff. But without a deadline system, I would. Yeah, well, what do I want to do now? Do I just want to craft more stuff? Do I want to go exploring? I don't know, too much decisions. And I feel when there is a time restriction, the devs can, in a way, balance how much crafting and how much exploring the player does in any given point in the game to like get a good rhythm going on. But without the timing system, without any deadlines, it's completely up to the player, so you can really easily just get into a point where you just craft way too much to have so much so that you kind of stop having some fun doing the crafting. But that's just me. I don't know. Maybe the experience is different for other people. And maybe it's also just a thing that I experienced with Sophie because they changed the how you obtain new recipes for crafting. To be fair though, the crafting system is definitely the best in Sophie. The way they changed that. It's definitely the most interesting. But they also changed the way how you learn new recipes. Normally in most Atelier games so far, you just either found or bought a book that had crafting recipes in it, and then you're good to go. You can just craft these things. But in Sophie, they instead have you... Oh, that wasn't a full jump. In Sophie, they have you instead get crafting ideas by doing various things. Various things like examine this statue in town, or fight a certain monster, or use a bomb in battle, and stuff like that. Which, to be fair, how you get these ideas, or how you get which ideas you need for a new recipe is written in the recipes book, so it's not like it's completely obtuse and you just stumble upon it randomly. No, that's not it. You do know what you have to do in order to get these recipes. But it's still normally like when you get these recipe books in the previous games, you usually got multiple recipes at the same time. Usually like 3 to 4 recipes in each book. So whenever you get a new book, you would check, oh, okay, what can I craft now out of these things here? Probably like at least 2, maybe even all of them. And then you just go crafting, and then you immediately want to try that out in battle because now you have nothing left over. But in Sophie, you only ever get 1 recipe at a time. So, 1 recipe isn't really enough to make the crafting really feel all that engaging, because it's only 1 recipe. I'm like, yeah, that's quickly over. And I keep doing a full jump here when I really shouldn't. Yeah, that said, the crafting in Sophie is super fun because they like the crafting in most games, at least after the Arlen series, there the crafting's incredibly simplistic, but good enough to still be worthwhile. Full jump to the left. Do I want to go to the left here and then just... No, I don't. Okay. Yeah, in Sophie, the crafting works in a way that... Crud. Like you have like a 4x4 up to a 6x6 grid, and each item that you need to use for crafting takes up a certain amount of space, like essentially like the inventory system in Diablo or in some of the Resident Evil games. I think the earlier ones specifically. Essentially like that, except that materials have like more like Tetris kind of shapes. And you need to place them into your cauldron, into your grid, in specific ways so you get the most bonuses out of it. Which can, like, that system is surprisingly deep. You can get so much out of that system. It's really, really fun. Maybe because that system's also probably the most complex out of the crafting systems so far. Maybe that's why they decided, yeah, sometimes just getting one new recipe is enough, because you first have to figure out how the crafting system works, and then by the end of the game, you can just give you more new recipes at the same time. Which, oh yeah, they definitely showered me in recipes by the end of the game, which had the opposite problem of I have too many. I want to go exploring. I don't want to craft all this shit anymore. Yeah, the balance was a little off for me. But, yeah. For how deep the system was, though, in Sophie, I never really felt like it was too much. Like, it's surprisingly not simple, but it has a lot of leeway. So you don't need to fully understand it in order to get your first items crafted. Or even the late game items, like if you don't want to deal with that system, like nobody's forcing you, that just means your items are going to be a bit weaker, oh boy. Not that troublesome, honestly. Is that going to work? I don't think it is. Nope. Yeah. Man, all in all, even with the ever-looming time limit, which really isn't looming, as I mentioned earlier, it's more like it's looking over your shoulder every once in a while. Just reminding you, yeah, I'm there technically, but do whatever you want. The Atelier series is really a really chill series. With low stakes, story-wise, and it's really more about the characters than the plot, honestly. Which I highly appreciate. In general, like, I've heard, I don't know if it's a saying technically, but from what I've heard, there's like, what, 7 different types of stories you can tell, and every story that we hear is just a variation of these 7 types of stories. It's all mostly just the details that keep getting exchanged. With the details, obviously, being big enough to make it feel like an entirely new story, but in general, like, it's still these 7 themes of stories. Which is why I, in general, prefer stories that are about characters more so than about the plot, I guess. I don't know how to describe it otherwise. Nuts. But that might just be also just be me preferring character interaction in general. I don't know. I always value that way more than any grand scene of grand magnitude. Okay, that jump needs to be easier somehow. What am I missing? Can I just, like, do a full jump to the... Oh my god! Oh, of course. Oops. Well, at least now I know an easier way to get up there. Assuming I get back up there. But speaking of stories, especially in games, I did grow up in a time where there barely was any story in games. So that might be another reason why I don't care about stories in games that much either. Like in the early 8-bit games, which technically were before my time, but in 16-bit games like Sonic the Hedgehog 1 or Sonic the Hedgehog 2 or... yeah, there really wasn't a whole lot of story going on. You had your instruction booklet where they explained that Dr. Robotnik is the evil guy. Sonic and his friends are the good guys. Go beat up Dr. Robotnik, who is trying to conquer the world by turning all the woodland critters into machines. And that was enough for people back then. And then you just played the game. And if you were lucky, you got an ending where your heroics were displayed, and that was pretty much about it for the story. To be fair, there was usually, especially in Sonic games, some subtle storytelling through the level design. Like how the early levels usually are these lush and green areas, like Green Hill Zone being full of life. And by the end of the game, when you get to Scrap Brain Zone, everything's completely metallic and full of machines. To just show you, like, this is how the world would look like if Robotnik actually won. So it's not like there wasn't any storytelling whatsoever. It's just very subtle. Kind of like the Souls games in a way. Where most of the story is taking place through the level design, the aesthetics of each given area. And in Souls games, also in the item descriptions, let's not get ourselves here, there's a lot of lore in the item descriptions. But still, the story is generally kept subtle. Like, if you care about the world building, you go ahead and just try to analyze all the stuff that's here. And go and read all the item descriptions. And if you don't care about it, well, there's no need to care about it. You can just slash all these undeads here if you want to. Nobody's stopping you. Not to say that there's not some more obvious story to speak of in Dark Souls, because there is some of it, just generally kept more to a minimum. Am I honest to God that even getting back up to the... Am I not getting out of this screen here anymore, huh? There we go. But while I'm on the topic of JRPGs and storytelling, I do... Oh wait, what am I doing? I'm doing the wrong jump again. Generally, I do prefer characterization of characters over some interest, like it was some grand story. But if you... like the story in itself should still be decent, I guess. Like... So... Another... Goodbye, Crib. Another JRPG series that I tend to play which is focusing more so on the characterization of their characters more so than the bigger story at hand, although I feel like they are still focusing on the bigger story at hand, which is probably why I have the problem with this series. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself. So the series that I'm trying to talk about now, but not getting the curve to, is the Hyperdimension Neptunia series, which is also a JRPG series, where, yeah, more focus is put on the characters. But, man, that game series story has disappointed me in the first game. From that point onward, I realized, yeah, no, don't even bother trying to get too much into the story. Because the Hyperdimension Neptunia series, or how I tend to call it, Hyperdineption, it just started at some point. I didn't even mean to. It just slipped out, and every single time where I tried to say it, it slipped out as Hyperdineption, so now I'm just calling it like that. Out of spite? No, not out of spite. Out of habit? I don't know. Something along the lines of that. But yeah, and honestly, the couple times where I said the name properly, I had to actively focus on saying the name properly, not to mess it up. It's a curse, I swear. But yeah, the Hyperdimension Neptunia series. So the premise of that series is that there are four nations, each governed by one goddess. With these goddesses being the representation of various gaming consoles, and the nations that they govern being, well, the being representations of the manufacturers of these gaming systems. So the main character of Hyperdineption is Neptune, who is a representation of the Sega Saturn. I think it's the Saturn, right? Or was it? No, God, wasn't there this one Sega system that didn't get released? Or I don't remember, but it's one of the older Sega systems. When I say older Sega systems, but they're really are only old ones at this point. God, when has the Dreamcast come out? How many years ago? God, I'm old. Right, yeah, Neptune is the main character of that series, and she's the representation of a Sega system, which I don't entirely remember. And another one of the characters, Noir, is the representation of PlayStation in general, I guess? With her nation being, well, Sony, I suppose. Then we have Blanc, who's a representation of some... Okay, there was a second Neptune after all, okay. Yeah. Right, so it was a cancelled one, so I didn't misremember that fact. Okay. Yeah, Blanc is a representation of some Nintendo console. It might have been the Wii, I'm not sure. I know her younger sisters are the representation of the Nintendo DS, because two screens, so so they're twins. And the last one is Word? I don't know how to pronounce her name. Who is the representation of Xbox. So with these four characters, and the premise being, yeah, the first game, they're fighting against each other, trying to get the biggest market share, like trying to trump each other. You'd think that, oh yeah, this entire game's gonna be full of references and for all these consoles and stuff like that. Like they're gonna do so much with this setting. Like it's fairly unique if you think about it. there might have been other series that talked about the console wars in one way or another, but at least to my knowledge, Hyper is the only one that, or the only game series that does something like that. Maybe, maybe not. Or at least it was the first. It's one of the few ones at least. But long story short, they do nothing with that setting. Like, it's just window dressing. I was so disappointed. Like, yeah, it could have, it literally didn't matter that their representation of all these gaming consoles. I don't even know to describe how they're not doing anything with it, because they're not doing anything with it. That's a crime, honestly. Okay, I gotta jump to the left at this point, honestly. If I'm landing like that. Okay, now I can go to the right though. Yeah. That's awkward. Completely to the center here. Eh. Yeah, they make the... At most, I mean, the series does make a couple of references every once in a while, but nothing really that matters for the plot. It's usually just like a fan service reference, if you want to call it that. Like they acknowledge that things exist that has to do with gaming consoles, but that's about it. And the reason why I brought Hyper up is, yeah, it does have a lot of focus on these characters, on the main cast of initially 4, later 8, which 8 constantly recurring characters is definitely too many. Which all want to be the main character, or the main character and 7 supporting characters. That's too many. Especially since they always bring new characters in on top of that. Too many characters! Yeah, they're all kind of fighting for their screen time, which means that they're all kind of at most two-dimensional characters that want to be fleshed out more, but don't really get the time they need for that. Whereas with the Atelier games, since the cast is fairly slow, fairly low. I mean, I guess they also do have like up to 8 characters that appear in a game. But it is only 8 characters, and not 8 characters plus an additional 6 to 8 characters each game, because they need to have new villains that then get introduced as playable characters or something. I don't know. Yeah. On top of that, the Hyper series really doesn't have anything else to fall back on if you don't like the story that much, because the only thing it has is the fighting system, and the fighting system in Hyper is basic as fuck. I mean, okay, that's a lie. They do have a bit of technical depth, I guess, where usually, like, you fight in a... Like, it is a turn-based fighting system, but you do fight in a 3D area, where, like, you can move around in, and depending on the positioning of your enemies, you can use AoE attacks that might hit multiple enemies. Again, depending on where they're standing. But they're not really doing enough with that. Like, yeah, okay, you're forcing us to choose between between AoE attacks and single target attacks, like most other JRPGs. And usually you can hit all of the enemies anyway with an AoE attack, unless it's a super small area. And other than that, there's really nothing. Like, buffs are most of the time not required because the game's piss easy. And yeah, that's kind of it. There's not really a whole lot of... I mean, there could be a lot of depth, but you don't need it is the problem. The only times I really remember using a whole lot of buffs is when I intentionally underleveled myself, which is always. Because otherwise I'm just steamrolling through every enemy and the bosses. And then the bosses do... Okay, like one gaming... RPG gaming design that I really dislike, that unfortunately happens more often than I would like to admit, is when bosses have, like, how to explain it? Like the boss just, when the boss is fighting against you, the boss is doing quite a fair amount of damage, sure, but you can withstand it with all sorts of buffs and healing yourself and all that stuff. Like, you have a fairly good chance to fight to win against the boss with how the boss is faring against you. Like, you never really get into any danger. And then the boss uses a super powerful attack and one-shots your entire party. Does this happen in Hybrid Adaption? More often than not, when you're underleveled. And when you're overleveled, you just annihilate the boss, and the only thing that comes even close to threatening you is the attack that would one-shot you if you're underleveled. So there's really no balance. Either you die to the super attack when you're underleveled, or the boss is not doing a whole lot of anything to you because you're decently leveled, and either way you're kind of not having fun because it's either too easy or impossible. And you need to level grind, or get lucky with the boss just missing the attack. That can also happen. Because the bosses also, like, their AoEs are also usually area dependent, so if you just spread out your characters a bit, you're good to go. Which direction do I jump from here? Well, okay. Or, admittedly, something like that has also happened in... in Atelier Shally? Yeah, it was Shally. Not that the bosses just one-shot me, because I was underleveled or anything like that, but in that game, in Atelier Shally's, and it was only in Shally so far from all the ones that I've played, and I'm at my 8th Atelier game now. Right, what a whole lot of enemies, like either superpowered enemies that you could force to attack you. So at least you had a fair warning, like it's your own fault for that enemy being here. You lured it here, or but also some of the later bosses. Yeah, a whole lot of bosses just have the ability to regenerate themselves each turn. Meaning that every single boss enemy became not a damage race, but a DPS check still. Because if the boss is healing itself for 1000 HP each turn, you only... Okay, 1000 is pretty much for Atelier. If the boss is healing itself for, say... I think they usually heal themselves for like 200 or something. But I only dealt 200 or like 250 damage each turn. So yeah, I'm not dealing against this boss anytime soon, and that 250 damage is with items, which run out. So yeah. Whoops. And the worst part is that some of these bosses only gained this much healing halfway through the battle. So I could beat them to like half of their HP, maybe even a quarter of their HP, and then they start to super heal. I just spent 15 minutes to get you down to this part, and now you're healing yourself? Fuck you! There might be a reason why Shally is my least liked game of the series. But to be fair, I could have just level grinded or made better equipment. That was always an option. Especially since Shelly didn't have a time limit. Actually, no. Was it Shelly? Or was it Escalogi? I think it might have been Escalogi, actually. Sorry, Shelly, for trying to dump other games' shortcomings on you. I think it was actually Escalogi which had way too much healing on the bosses. Yeah. Okay, in that game I did have limited time, but I also slept through like 80 days because I didn't feel like crafting new items at level grinding, so that's entirely on me at that point. Yeah, still, I don't like bosses that... Like, a boss can heal itself once. That's annoying, but fine. If it's a scripted thing, then sure. Why not just give it more max HP to begin with? But fine. But don't give bosses the ability to heal themselves as part of their moveset. Because at that point it is just a DPS check. Like, can I out DPS this enemy here? Strategy to survive doesn't matter. It's literally just can you succeed in this DPS check? And I'm the kind of JRPG player who prefers tanking it out over damage rushing a boss. I'd rather spend half an hour on a boss by out surviving it than spending 10 minutes on a boss by just dealing a whole ton of damage before the boss can kill me. Case in point, when I was playing Bravely Default 2, bosses in that game actually do have a maximum amount of MP that they can use. Against the final boss of the game, I made the final boss run out of MP. I'm not sure if I should be proud of myself for that or not. But it's certainly something that I did. And not just the final boss, several bosses ran out of MP against me. Because I just kept turtling. And of course, once they have no MP left, then most of their good attacks are gone. I guess you could turtling a wedded strategy in Bravely Default 2 because of that, though. Heck, I don't even remember how I turtled, though. I feel like I didn't even intend to turtle particularly hard in that game. It was more like, oh my god, the boss is about to kill me if I don't keep spamming buffs and healing magic on myself. Actually, that might be partially a lie, because I think at the end of the game I did have a setup where I... one of the classes has an ability in Bravely Default 2 where nobody takes any damage until that character gets another movement. And I think at the end of the game I just spammed that a whole lot. And should the enemy get a hit in after all, I would then heal that up again. Nah, that was too much. Yeah. Bravely Default is also a really fun JRPG series, especially the first two games, which Bravely Default 2, despite having a 2 in the name, is actually the third game of the series. Because the second game is called Bravely Second. They really should have just gone to Bravely Default 3 if they didn't want to have a Bravely Third. Yeah, it probably I probably like Bravely Default so much because it's basic gameplay mechanics are kind of like those in Final Fantasy V, where you have job classes, and you can mix and match 2 of them at any given point in time. Like, you can have one job class actively equipped, and then use the active abilities of another job class, or the passive ones even. And at Bravely Default, in that series, they even go one step further, that you can also, like, have the active abilities of 2 classes, and then say, okay, there are a couple of passive abilities, which you can choose from any class that you have learned them from. So you can do a whole lot of bullshit reading that game series. There are so many broken combos if you can find them out. In Bravely Second, there's one insanely fun combo where... So one class has the passive ability of when you die, like when one of your characters dies, they don't get knocked unconscious, but they become a ghost instead. Which means, I think they cannot be revived through traditional means anymore. But, as a trade-off, they can still cast magic while being a ghost. But once they run out of MP, well, I guess no more spells now, because you don't have an MP to use it anymore. Except there's another class which has a passive ability which reads, if you get to critical HP, all of your spells become free. 0 HP is critical HP. So, nuts. So yeah, free spellcasting with your ghosts. Problem, you have at least one character less to be targeted from single target attacks, which can be a bit of a problem, but if you have a good enough defense otherwise, yeah, like, I'll take free spellcasting. Like, I'll take casting the best spells over and over and over again any time of the day, really. Or something that I did in Bravely Default 1, and which made me love the concept of dual shielding. Yeah, I guess I'll have to dual shield at some point in Elden Ring, don't I? Except I'm the wrong build for that at this point. But in Bravely Default 1... Uh-oh. This is not looking good. I think I need to back up a bit. Too much! Yeah, in Bravely Default 1, I think in any Bravely Default game you can equip any weapon in any hand, which includes shields. You can just equip a shield in either hand, but also 2 shields, like 1 shield in each hand, which both give you a sizable boost to your defense. And one of the classes had the ability of Shield Slam or something along the lines of that. It probably was called differently. But it's an attack which costs you 2 turns worth of time, which in Bravely Default you can store turns for future use. Like you defend, and then next turn you can use 2 turns worth of movements. So yeah, that move would cost you 2 turns, but instead you would then deal the move would be an attack where you deal damage based on your defense rather than your offense. So if you equip 2 shields and a lot of heavy armor, you're pretty much impervious to all physical attacks, and then you deal 9,999 damage to any target for 2 turns worth of turns. So yeah, that was fun. I was pretty much unkillable against any non-spellcasters. And spellcasters kind of wrecked me. So that needed a different strategy. But still, that was such a fun gimmick in that game. Yeah, no, that wasn't a good idea. Now I do wonder though, how good are shields in Bravely Default, not Bravely Default, in Elden Ring for attacking? I'm going to assume that it's still just a meme build, but I did see that you can equip 2 shields if you really want to. Which also reminds me that, man, why is it not allowed to equip 2 shields in D&D? Like, I suppose you can, but the second shield won't give you any benefits, which, really? Man. I guess having 2 bonuses to your AC would be kind of too good, but you're also not dealing any damage anymore, so really, that's I feel like that's fair. Too much. Honestly, at some point in time, I think shields overtook swords in being my favorite weapon in general. Okay, that didn't count as a jump, I guess. Man, now I want to have an Atelier character that uses a shield as a weapon. Make it happen, Gust. I find it kind of funny too, while I'm back on the topic of Atelier, how in the first game that I played in Atelier Roroda, I pretty much never used any attack items because that costs me time to create them and they're single use, or like technically they're 5 uses or whatever, like how many charges each item has, but I'm not going to make use of my crafted items. Like, that costs time, and I need time for exploration and for you know, crafting more items and stuff. I only have so much time. And likewise, I preferred characters with which I could just press the attack button and wouldn't have to use skills, because MP is a limited resource. You only have so much MP, and if you run out of MP, then you're kind of screwed. So I could make use of MP. And nowadays, it's kind of the opposite for me. I just throw items left and right, even before they got rid of the deadline system. Or, well, I mean, in Escalogy, they also gave you your items back at the end of any exploration phase, so that also made it easier to use them. But even before that, I also started using items more freely, because either because the game became more lenient with the time of the deadline, I don't know, or I just got used to the systems more, so I realized, yeah, it really can just throw these bombs the entire time and not run out of time, so I might as well just use them. And then they got rid of the deadline system. Man. I'm kind of low-key hoping that they'll bring it back at some point, but after looking it up, I mean, I guess they kind of brought it back in Fearless for half the game, from what I read. But since it's only half the game, I'm not going to count it, because, well, they've now made, I think, 6 games in a row without a deadline system, so I kind of don't think they're going to bring it back at this point. which is fair, I suppose. Like, I got used to it, but I have to admit that in the first game I did have some huge planning phases of trying to minimize any wasted time because of the deadline system. But it was also kind of fun. It was a little bit stressful, I guess, but it was more fun trying to plan out the perfect assignment period so you don't waste any time at all, or as little as possible. Trying to make everything efficient. But I understand that that's not for everybody. And technically speaking, they also already had some Atelier games that didn't have a deadline system even before Shelly. So it's not like it was always part of the series, it was just part of the series long enough for me that... For me, it became part of the series because I started with the earliest game in the series for that, to have the longest streak of deadline games with a deadline system in there. If that sentence made any sense whatsoever. Or to put it more plainly, I played 5 games in a row that had a deadline system, then all of a sudden it stopped. Like, 5 games in a row does make it seem like it's supposed to be part of the main gameplay loop, but apparently not. I mean, now we're 6 games in a row that don't have a deadline system, so... Now that is the de facto gameplay style. Okay, can I make it back up here, please? That's an awkward jump. Actually, can I just do... No. Don't even bother. Do it the way I did before. Okay, good. We made it back up to the beginning of the stream! Well, technically I restarted, so I don't even know if that counts. Ah, no. Ooh, okay, there's some snow at the edges to prevent you from just sliding off. That's nice. Doesn't mean you won't be falling down, as we've seen before. Also, I feel like there's gonna be a hidden passage up here. Maybe? Maybe not? Or at least I cannot seem to hit... Yeah, no, I guess there isn't one. I thought because of it was partially cracked up there, maybe there would be a... hidden passage or something. Maybe there is one, but only for falling down. Oh, okay. Yeah, unfortunately, this progress here is short-lived. Because even if I make it further up... Ah, okay. Yeah, I can't see the lowest part of the screen again. I still haven't fixed that problem. Yeah, with how this game here is, I could easily slide back into the earlier parts of the game. Like, I believe this... Huh? I believe this set here has absolutely no checkpoints whatsoever. When the birds are sounding, stop what you are doing or begin evacuation. Okay. Some hidden lore, I suppose. Okay, so I want to jump at that cage and then move further up. Oh no, oh no, oh no! Okay, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. Was half I expected the game to be launching me even further back. Okay, if I just go to the very... Ah, no, that's too much! Case in point. Wait, what? Oh, right. I wanted to jump on here. Oh, ooh. Didn't know it could fall down like that. Well. And here I just wanted to say at least I've got my muscle memory back, but there we go. Yeah. In general, though, the Atelier series is a very fun series of games. Otherwise, I wouldn't have stuck with it for 8 games now. Yeah. And I wouldn't have beaten 1 game a month starting like 5 games ago. I may have a problem. To be fair, the games are fairly short, only quote-unquote 40 hours. Maybe I shouldn't base the length of a JRPG game based on Persona 5 specifically. Which, I think that took me 100 hours to beat, 100 to 110. That game is long. But absolutely fantastic. Speaking of Atlas games, though, I gave the Shin Megami Tensei series a try. Well, I guess you can't really call it a try anymore if you're 3 games deep now. I started with Shin Megami Tensei 4, then played 4 Apocalypse, and then the last one that I'm playing now is Shin Megami Tensei 5. Actually, no. Technically speaking, I started with Shin Megami Tensei Devil Survivor, I think. The one that came out of the on the Nintendo DS, which is a like strategy RPG, technically speaking. And those 2 games are still my absolute favorite ones of the series. I don't know, they're just really fun. But yeah, because I love Persona so much, and the 2 strategy RPG Shin Megami Tenseis were also a lot of fun, I gave the mainline series a try, and I don't want to say they're bad, because they're definitely not, but man, they have one mechanic which I just absolutely hate, which pretty much ruins the entire game for me. I guess today is just JRPG talk, isn't it? I'm gonna gotta fill in the jumping time here somehow, right? Yeah, so the Shin Megami Tensei series is a pretty... I don't want to say standard, but it is a JRPG series, definitely. Where you can fight demons, which you can then recruit into your party. Not... Well... I don't know how much I want to compare it to Pokemon, because Pokemon, your trainer doesn't fight, whereas in Shin Megami Tensei, your main character does fight, but you still recruit demons into your party, which then help you out during combat as new party members. But yeah, like that, the entire base mechanics of Shin Megami Tensei is perfectly fine, and the mechanics for the most part are really fun too. But there is one mechanic which is technically linked to another mechanic, which I just absolutely hate. And I guess I have to reach out a little bit here. So, oh dear. Huh. Yeah. So Shin Megami Tensei, from some game on, I don't know. Like I said, I only started with the 4th game of the series. It uses what's called the press turn system, which essentially is you have as many turns per round as you have party members. So if you have a full party of 4 characters, means you get 4 press turns. Each action that you do spends up to 1 full press turn, but stuff like switching to the next character only takes you half a turn, which allows you, okay. How to get up here now though, without falling off? Yeah, which allows you to, for example, have your main character attack twice if the main character is the first slot, by just have the main character attack and then switch a couple of yeah, for example, have the last character in the rotation not attack, and then your first character gets a turn in again. Something like that. However, if you hit an enemy's weakness, you also only require half a press turn instead of a full one. So in the end, because of that, you can get up to 8 turns during 1 full round, which incentivizes you to strategize to figure out the enemy's weaknesses and act accordingly. And that mechanic in itself is pretty fun. That wasn't enough. However, critical hits also only spend half a press turn, which a critical hit is already dealing double damage, so that's already good enough. Why do we need more of a reward for that? But stuff like missing an enemy, which is technically RNG, spends 2 press turns. Meaning instead of just wasting 1 turn because you missed the enemy, you're also wasting another character's turn entirely because, well, you got shit RNG. Thanks, game. And I'm not saying that to Jump King, I'm saying that to Shin Megami Tensei now. Uh-oh. Maybe to Jump King too. Right. And normally, like, yeah, it sucks quite a bit to miss an enemy, but... Oh, and also hitting an enemy's resistance, no, not resistance, but immunity, also wastes 2 press turns, but at that point, yeah, that's kind of on you. Be careful. And sure, you can increase your accuracy and decrease the enemy's evasion to minimize the chance of missing an enemy, but against random mooks, you kind of don't want to do that, or maybe that's on me, I don't know. But I feel just using the enemy's weaknesses is good enough usually, and then sometimes you miss with your spell that costs you MP, and yeah, then you, instead of hitting weakness, you do nothing at all. But all of that I can still live with. What I have a problem with, though, is, well, is the fact that there is a skill that even enemies can use, because, by the way, enemies also make use of the press turn system, which is reasonable. Like, sure, why wouldn't the enemies not use the same systems that you do? Like, that's only fair. But the enemies, and technically you too as well, I guess, At least in Shin Megami Tensei 5, not so much in 4. And even in 5, it's a limited resource for you and not so much for the enemies because, well, they're the enemies. They have no permanence between battles. Yeah, the enemies have an ability which they sometimes use at the end of their turn, which makes it so during their entire next turn, all of their hits will be considered critical. So yeah, have fun having the enemies hit you 8 times during a single turn. By the way, did I mention that, at least on hard, because I'm a glutton for punishment, I guess, the enemies can usually kill you already if they just get 4 turns in? Also, did I mention that the battle is completely over if just your main character dies, and even if you have remaining demons left over that can in theory revive your main character? Yeah. Fun. I haven't played Shin Megami Tensei 5 in a while, actually. I need to lower the difficulty, honestly. Keeping it on hard is just begging for me to not want to go back. Especially with Elden Ring being out now. And before that, Metroid Dread. I always wanted to stream Metroid Dread, but then I started off stream, and then I just kept going off stream, and then I was done with the game. Metroid Dread is a super fun game on the Switch. Like, definitely a 100% guarantee recommendation if one likes Metroidvania games. I probably wouldn't say that Metroid Dread is my favorite Metroid game, that probably goes to Fusion, but it's definitely a close second. Although, out of Metroidvanias, my favorite spot definitely goes to Symphony of the Night. Absolutely. Alongside Bloodstained. Which reminds me that I still wanted to stream that, didn't I? Ah, no! Which also reminds me, didn't... Oh. That was a dumb fall. Didn't they want to bring out like a new character at some point? Did that already happen and I just didn't notice that they did? I have to double check that after the stream. Okay, game, I just want to get one screen further at least, please. Well then just get better then. Yeah, I know, game. I know, get good. Yeah, I don't... No, actually, I think I know exactly why I prefer Castlevania over Metroid. I like the medieval horror aesthetics more than space horror settings. Assuming that... Well, technically, like, the theming of Castlevania is technically... Well, it's not medieval, but... it's definitely like... God, what era would that be? I'm bad with categorizing. But... Still, I prefer, like, these... yeah. More... past horror creatures more so than space aliens, I guess. But the actual like reason why I prefer Castlevania over Metroid is in Metroid most of the stuff that you can find is just strict upgrades for your gear. Well, yeah, like for your blaster, for example, like you get an ice missile or a wave beam that can penetrate walls or stuff like that. Like you get one big upgrade, which is also required to progress, which is a very elegant system, admittedly. Whereas in Castlevania, you do have your progression required upgrades, like a double jump or flight or turning into mist, I guess, in Symphony of the Night specifically, and stuff like that. But on top of that, you also find regular gear, like new weapons or armor, and other minor upgrades, which which are more varied. Like, sure, in Metroid as well, you can find health upgrades and missile packs, which aren't required for completing the game, but they're all, well, missile upgrades and health upgrade. There's not a whole lot of difference there. It's just more of the same. To be fair, each health upgrade and missile upgrade is always more than welcome. But it's still like it's a surprise that something's there, but it's not a surprise of, okay, is this gonna be changing up my gameplay style entirely now? Like when you find a new weapon in Symphony of the Night or other Castlevanias where, well, especially other Castlevanias later on after Symphony of the Night, because there's so much more weapon types rather than just sword. So just finding anything, even just a drop from an enemy, which you can't have in Metroid because all of your drops are just permanent upgrades. Whereas in Castlevania you can also have equipment upgrades, as in new equipment, which, yeah, an enemy can just drop that. Why wouldn't they? It's not that substantial. It's just a minor upgrade. But it still feels more exciting, which is why I like Castlevania generally more so than Metroid. But Metroid is still a very fantastic series. At least the 2D games. I haven't actually played Metroid Prime, I think, are the 3D games. Not too much of a fan of 3D games in general. Okay, that's a lie, but I prefer 2D over 3D usually. And Metroid Prime is also technically a shooter series, like exploration shooter, technically, I think. Nice, get back up. Yeah, if I'm getting to this jump, I can make it fairly consistently at this point. So that's nice. Problem is getting up here first. Ugh. That's sad. No, that wasn't... One misstep and it's cost me 5 screens. Well, a second misstep technically, but that first misstep only cost me 1 or half a screen, which I would have preferred had it stayed as. Oh. Well, we're back, guys. What did I want to say? Right, I am looking forward to Igarashi's next big project, which hopefully is going to be a Bloodstained 2 of some sort. It doesn't have to be a Bloodstained 2, but they already have all the models, so it would make sense to reuse a lot of them. But some kind of new Metroidvania game. I'm definitely looking forward to that. In general, the world needs more good Metroidvanias. It's kind of a shame that they've kind of fallen out of favor for the bigger game studios, because you can't make as much money with them as with other game genres. Heck, Igarashi left Konami because they wouldn't let him work on actual games anymore, instead of just phone shovelware games. And what is Konami doing with the Castlevania IP nowadays? Pachinko machines. Ugh. Like, how long has it been since the last new Castlevania game outside of that phone one? That's a huge crossover, kind of, I guess. Except I think at this point it's been discontinued. It is kind of a shame to see old game series just... I guess I got that coin! No, I'm not gonna go coin hunting in this. In this game mode here. I'm having enough trouble as is. What did I want to say? Something about... Oh yeah, old game series, right. It is kind of a shame to see long-running game series just kind of stop at some point. I mean, it's better if long-running series in general stop getting new content while the series is still good, before they turn into The Simpsons and, well, keep shitting out new stuff that nobody wants for longer than their good time span, but still, like, I would really love to see a new Castlevania game that's actually good. I don't trust you, Konami, even if you set somebody new into the Castlevania directing slot. Somehow I don't trust you can pull it off. Without screwing it up by adding microtransactions or stuff like that. Now, it may seem like I wanted to have a reset, but no. I just screwed up. Or heck, for a time, people even, like... Bomberman 2, I guess, but Mega Man was kind of dead after Inafune left Capcom. And sure, now we've had a new Mega Man game a couple of years ago, but no news since then, huh? I really hope they're just taking their time to make a new good Mega Man game, and that it isn't the case of, oh yeah, that Mega Man game was generally well received, but didn't sell enough copies, so we're not allowing a new game of that series anymore. That would be so sad. On the other hand, though, for Metroidvanias and Mega Man specifically, there are so many like indie games and their themes. Because they're 2D, and well, I guess maybe not so much Metroidvanias, but Mega Man at least. I keep wanting to say Bomberman. I guess I really want to play Bomberman, huh? I guess I could. I have it on the Switch. And the PlayStation. And well, technically I don't have it on the Mega Drive, but my uncle did, which I played that game a lot. And through emulation I do have them. I mean, on the PlayStation I have it either way, but I'd play it via emulation because it's easier than hooking up a PlayStation and then capturing that. God, I've played a lot of Bomberman when I was younger. Such a fun series. Super simple gameplay premise, but so much you can do with. Right, yeah. Mega Man games are super simple to make since this is a 2D game, and otherwise it's just jump and run and have a bit of creativity with the weapon mechanics from bosses. Speaking of, what's it called again? Takoman Kosatsu World, I think, is now being released on Steam, or has already been released on Steam. Which, that game is a Toho fan game made in the style of the Mega Man Zero games. I think I've Let's Played that ages ago. I think. You hated Bomberman? Oh dear. Yeah. Takoman was such a fun game, but also super brutal. Like, oh my god, is it difficult. Man. Maybe I'll play that game on stream at some point again. Takoman, that is. Just to see if I can still beat it. I think when I Let's Played it, I had to intensively practice it so I don't just constantly die in the final boss. I was too good in that game. Yeah. God, that reminds me. I guess I do tell that story more, like a couple of times. But so, on one school trip, all of us boys brought our Nintendo DS's with us. And I brought, like most of us were just playing, or for the most part we were playing Mario Kart for the DS against each other. But I also brought Bomberman DS during that trip. And during one night, where we were supposed to go to sleep, but, well, you know how school trips are. Nobody goes to sleep if you have gaming devices with you, because why would you sleep if you can play with each other instead? Yeah, during one night we were all playing Bomberman. And the DS game, because of the dual screens, allowed you for 8 players at the same time, with 4 starting at the top screen and 4 starting at the bottom screen. And the best part is that, well, Bomberman allowed for a download game with no restrictions whatsoever. So if one person had the copy of the game, all 8 people could play. So that was really nice. And yeah, during one night we were just playing Bomberman because we all thought, yeah, that sounds like a fun idea, instead of Mario Kart this time around. So yeah, we were playing, and well, I won the first round and the second round, and I win the entire game, and okay, everybody goes against NCS. Hey, why? Well, why against? Well, I guess it did win a lot. And I win anyway. Okay, I'm not that good, I swear. You just need to get the remote control bombs. That's all I'm doing. And also, half the games were won by me not doing anything at all. Like, the people were actively killing each other, while I was just collecting all sorts of power-ups, and game's over. Wait, what? I haven't seen a single one of you! What were you doing? That was fun. And remote control bombs are insanely broken. Like, what you can do is just place a remote control bomb at the intersection between the top screen and the bottom screen. And yeah, now there's only... I guess there are maybe multiple depending on which map you have, but I'm pretty sure in one map at least there's only one connection. And if you block it off and people don't realize that you can just bomb that bomb away, then yeah, what are you gonna do? You've blocked it off. Oh no, now the countdown goes down to a minute. Now the soft blocks come falling down and are crushing everybody in the bottom screen first, because it is bottom screen, the top screen. And oh my, I blocked off the bottom screen with my bombs while being at the top screen, and then they died. I may have had their ire coming at me for a good reason. But look, in the first part of Bomberman, you don't engage in combat, you just mind your own business and collect shit. If they don't realize that, then that's not my problem. Yeah. Although they did win a couple rounds too, it's not like I won everything. I want to say it was pretty much 50-50, with 50% me winning and 50% them winning, but split upon multiple people, so I definitely had advantage. But I also grew up with Bomberman, so I had home field advantage, definitely. But still, if I were to play against actual, like, against actually good people, heck, I want to say, in Bomberman R for the Switch, if I'm not misremembering right now, at least during the beginning portion, you could play the game without the Nintendo Online membership. Online, that is. Because I'm pretty sure I played against some people in that game. And they wrecked me. Like, I had no chance against them, so I'm far from being a good Bomberman player. It's just that everybody around me is worse. Horrible shame on me. Yeah, definitely. I deserve every shame. But honestly, I mean, sure, nowadays, if somebody's new to something, I might hold back for a bit until they understand the mechanics and stuff. But if I feel that my opponent does understand the mechanics, then I'm not holding back. Like, I'm playing to win. Because I wouldn't want somebody to hold back against me. I don't want to be patronized. I want to play against an actual person. And that means that I'm taking every opportunity that I can get, which brings me to some games of Root that I've played with a couple of friends. With Root being a board game where, like, a more or less asymmetrical board, like war board game. Like every player has one faction, and your factions can fight against each other to get control over some spaces on the board, and you win the game by fulfilling various tasks which are dependent on which faction you play. Like the Marquis the Cat gains victory points by building structures, which you put on the board, which can be destroyed, and each structure gives them a specific small benefit. The Eerie, which are one of my favorites, they have a decree which essentially says you must do this during your turn in that order. With one of the four things that they can do is moving on the board. First recruiting more units on the board, then moving on the board, then fighting other factions on the board, and then building their roosts on the board, which is how they gain victory points, by having as many roosts on the board as possible. And one of the other favorite factions of the game, I have 3 favorite factions really, but one of the other ones is the Riverfolk Company, which are all about making business. Their big shtick is that you can, like, every faction can draw cards that they then can use for various purposes. And the Riverfolk Company, they can sell their hand cards to the other players for a given price, with the price being the tokens that you use for your units. Unspent ones, of course, not the ones that already are on the board. And other than that, they can also sell their own units for a turn for combat purposes. And the third thing is they can make certain connections between spaces for usable for other players. And since the Riverfolk needs a lot of convincing the other players, like, oh, you definitely want to have my hand cards here, right? And that kind of stuff, or building alliances with other players, like saying, okay, you know what, I'm technically impartial, I don't care about anything, I just want to do my business here, But if you help me out, then like if you buy something from me, then you know what? I'm gonna remove my troops here, so you have some benefits, or I move my troops over there, which inconveniences other people more, and helps you out instead, and that kind of stuff, like actual social gameplay. Not bound by any rules, but just convincing other players that, yeah, doing something that's technically in my favor is a lot more in your favor. And I love doing that kind of gameplay. It doesn't mean much if you win or lose. Yeah, like I'm fine with losing too. Like I don't need to win, but I feel giving it my all is just fun. Like, what's the point if you're not trying, you know? Yeah, especially if someone tries really hard and you can see how they get frustrated. Yeah, in that case, I might go off a little, go a little bit easier too. If they're having a hard time. It depends on the circumstances, of course, but if everybody's just having fun or as is, then yeah, I'm always giving my all. That said, my Rerofolk company strategy of trying to convince other players into doing bad moves, or not necessarily bad moves, like I'm usually giving good tips, but they usually benefit me more than other people might realize. I tend to do that in other games too, where social gameplay is not necessarily as much required. Just because I find it fun, like, yeah, it's, you know. Like, depending on the situation, though, I also might give away some game plans, which might actually be harmful to me if I think it's only fair to point something out. Like, if there's a rule that the player just doesn't realize exists, or maybe just during that moment, I usually point out, hey, you realize that rule here exists, so if you use that rule, then you get a huge advantage here right now. But it always depends on the game, the given circumstance of how my hints work out for other players. Ah, that wasn't enough. But hey, I made it to the next screen, technically speaking. For a second. Oh no, okay. Got scared there for a second. But all of that said, I am currently the DM in a Dungeons & Dragons game. Okay, just skip that cage, got it. Not that one though. Oh god, how do I get up there? Easier than I thought, huh? That was way easier than I thought it would be, and now watch me not, falling down, never getting back up here ever again. That's so gonna happen. What I wanted to say is I am currently DMing a Dungeons & Dragons game, and my players haven't complained yet that I am unfair towards them. It might happen in an upcoming dungeon, but I want to make it as clear as possible ahead of time that, yeah, this dungeon's gonna be screwing you, messing you up a little bit. By giving them lore. By giving them some lore hints. Not gonna say more than that though, because sometimes my players do listen in on my streams. Yeah, in general, in Dungeons & Dragons, or role-playing in general, though, I don't understand the... Like, of course, I want to give my players a challenge. If there's no challenge, then again, what's the point in it? Like, outside of social RP, I guess. But like once it gets to mechanical things, okay. Yeah, once it gets to mechanical things, then I think there should be a challenge. So I'm trying not to go too easy on them, but I'm also not trying to kill them. Nobody likes their character dying. But if the dice say your character dies, then I might fudge. But only so much. Like, if the dice are cursed, then okay, then the dice are cursed that day, I guess. Usually they're cursed in favor of the players, though, and against the NPCs. That's happened more often than not. Heck, in the technically second session, but in the first story beat of the game, because of, admittedly, I probably should have handled it differently than I did, but I almost, like, one of our party members got incapacitated and an NPC accidentally died, and I already went easy on that NPC. It was an NPC that were intended to save, by the way, so whoops, something got messed up here. Yeah. I definitely should have handled that situation differently in hindsight, but I was still new. Got me some slack. But it did make for some interesting roleplay, at the very least. Oh no, 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 oh god. I see I've reached that part of this game here, huh? The slide of doom. No, that's too much. Oh, that's not too much. Wow, barely though. In general, though, in our current campaign, my players are incredibly powerful. Jesus. Like, I'm throwing what I think is a tough encounter at them, and yeah, they don't even... They defeat them before our fighter even gets a move in. It's happened before. Okay, that encounter wasn't necessarily a hard one, but still. Yeah, sometimes I think, okay, yeah, no way they're making it through here without taking some huge damage, and yeah, no. Temp HP and a druid who can transform into animals, and yeah, that generally tanks a lot of damage. Heck, they don't even have a cleric, and they don't. Oh. And they don't even really need a cleric, because everybody can heal somehow, except for the fighter. At least I think everybody can heal, right? I think the artificer can heal too? Yeah, I think he can. The druid and bard definitely can. But I mean, that makes my job easier if everybody can heal. That way it's harder for everybody to die. Ah, crud. Can I just make it up here? No. On the one hand, it's going to be kind of sad once we are done with our current campaign. On the other hand, we've been playing already for over... No, not over a year. I think we started in summer? Summer or autumn? I'm gonna say, like, probably the end of summer, because I was thinking, yeah, we're probably getting done with our for the module that we're playing by the end of the year. It's now March. But we are almost done with the module itself. I will tack on some extra stuff at the end to close some character arcs, but outside of that, yeah, we're almost done. But that extra content is also going to be another 4 sessions probably, so another 2 months. That assumes that my estimations are correct, which so far my estimations were always half as long as they as my players actually took. So it's gonna be another 4 months. God dang it! Nah. I mean, I do enjoy DMing. Not so much the preparation, that kind of sucks, but the actual DMing is fun. Even though I need to get a lot better at narrating descriptions. I'm so bad at it. Like, I can never... I guess partially because I cannot really visualize surroundings to begin with, like even in my head not that well, and then trying to put it into words is another problem entirely. That was one of my biggest struggles when I was trying to write stories too. I just don't have the vocabulary required for that. Which is why I'm glad that I can at least draw some background. No, I cannot draw backgrounds. I hate drawing backgrounds. Backgrounds suck. There's so much work. And characters are just more interesting for me. Which is not to say that, like, backgrounds can look incredibly interesting too, but yeah. They're so hard. And they are hard because I never practice, and because I never practice, they stay hard, and because I never, because they stay hard, I never practice, and crud. The good old struggles of an artist. But since I don't do anything professionally art-wise, I don't have to be particularly good either. I just the backgrounds, if required, just need to be good enough. So they represent what I'm trying to have them represent. Like, as long as somebody knows the characters in my comic are in the forest, then the background did its job. God, I so have to get back to my comics at some point, don't I? I keep getting new ideas. But yeah. Heck, I really want to get back to the comics because so my original comic series is pretty much, yeah, the setting is pretty much a generic fantasy world, which is just an excuse so I can make as many references to other games as possible. Well, not necessarily references, but more like if I have a particularly funny idea for any given game, I can just slot it into that series, so to say. And recently, since I've been playing so much Atelier games, wow, no, that jump is just that easy, huh? Since I've been playing a lot of Atelier games, I do have some ideas, which technically I could just make some Atelier comics, or I could just use these ideas and put them into my comics world. And I certainly got some ideas that I want to use. That was a close one. Yeah. Unfortunately, for my comics at least, I'm also working on another animation, except well, I technically have started on it. But technically, I mean, I drew like 2 lines and then I didn't want to draw anymore. I'm really in an art slump right now. IRL is draining me too much. Come on, come up here, Jump King. You can do it. You can bump your head too, yes. No. Ooh. I guess you can fall that slot in the center there, huh? Okay. Come on, I just want to make it back up to that other screen here. You're not falling down this path, Jump King. Not if I can help it, and I can help it because I can jump. You really have to have your finger ready in this portion to just jump so you stop sliding. Just charging a jump doesn't stop the slide, but actually jumping does. Ooh, this portion is awkward. Do I want to risk it, or do I just want to stop at a good point so I can then start the next stream by falling off? Okay. I think this is a good stopping point. at the bottom here, technically where I started the stream. I made progress. I mean, I did learn how to get to that area up there. Like, my muscle memory got back. I just have to actually play some Jump King in the next couple days, weeks, so I don't forget the muscle memory. But this was fun. I also completely forgot to turn on music, didn't I? Anyway, next stream, not sure what if I'll play Jump King or Elden Ring. Probably Elden Ring. Definitely Elden Ring. Or maybe Slay the Spider, who knows? I certainly don't. Well, that's kind of the nice part about just being a random guy streaming without a fixed schedule. I can just do whatever I want. Yeah. Anyway, thank you all for watching. Thanks for giving me some company, and see you next time. Bye-bye.